All right, we're going to click live in about right now. All right, everyone, welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Andy Schectman is a regular on our channel. You guys know that every Tuesday night we have the weekly market update. Andy, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Good to be here, Dunnigan. Happy Tuesday. Good to see you, buddy.
Always good to see you. And this is a special one because it's a live stream. That means we've got a live chat going. Folks, if you aren't already participating in the live chat, the only way you can is if you subscribe to the channel. So click the subscribe button quick on YouTube, and then you'll see the live chat option. Make sure that you get your questions in there for Andy. Any question is a good one tonight. Any question you have for him about financial markets, the wholesale supply chain, retail premiums, what direction are we going, availability of silver and gold on the major exchanges, the BRICS nations turning away from the dollar, what's the Fed doing, going to have anything to do with inflation, deflation? What does that have to do with gold's performance historically? Are we really in a bull market for gold? Was this just a fake jump last week in silver and now it's down a little bit today? Any question is a good one. I just put the question out there in the title of this video of where should I store my gold, because that's a question we're getting a lot from clients when they call in, but your questions are the ones we care about tonight. So ask any question you want in the live stream and I'll try to get those in front of Andy. But Andy, let's kick that one off since it's been kind of a lively discussion we've been having already for the past half hour or so in the live chat. There is certainly a vocal chorus of voices there that are saying if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And I know that that's a very important aspect of everything that you've thought of through your life is privacy, personal freedom, that kind of thing. So maybe you can share just a bit of your personal philosophy about storing of gold. And does it matter whether you're just beginning or eventually, if you have amassed quite a significant stack, does that change the equation at all? And does it also matter whether you live, out in the country, you've got plenty of acreage and a big house and whatever security system, that kind of thing, versus if you live in a crowded apartment in a city, does that change the game for you in the equation as well? Your thoughts on that?
Look, there are extenuating circumstances in every instance, in every case. Every case is different. To the point of most people. My friend Bix Weir talks about this the most. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. There is a certain amount of truth to that, a certain amount, in the respect that we all often talk about metals being, gold and silver being assets that are not simultaneously someone else's liability. You have the complete absence or removal of counterparty risk. I mean, I think the truth is people have a greater likelihood of being ripped off by the system than they do by a burglar looking for precious metals. I think that one of the drawbacks of owning metals is the urge to help other people and talk about it. If you're going to hold it at home, you need to keep it quiet. You don't want to tell everyone about it. It's noble to want to help your friends and family, to show them what it is that you purchased. But yeah, if you are concerned about loose lips sinking ships, certainly you want to hold it at home and tell your immediate family or your loved ones, and then do a darn good job of hiding it. You don't always need to put it in a safe. You could put it in an empty paint can and splash paint on the outside of it and throw your coins in the closet or the basement with your other half-empty paint cans. You could get a big potted plant and lift up the plant and fill the bottom with gold and silver, put the plant back down, and you could bury it 2 feet underground. If you buried it in a PVC pipe capped with rubber caps on the end, vertically, not horizontally, vertically, 2 feet down, there isn't but a metal detector on the planet that will find it very easily. You can be very creative in hiding your precious metals. You can hide some in a safe and call that your decoy safe, a safe that has just enough in it to pacify a would-be burglar, intruder, and a small safe or several small safes hidden throughout the house that are filled with gold and cash. You can get a little safe that, about yay big, that you buy at any handgun store, bedside safe for handguns, but they typically have a bolt in the back of them, and you can fasten that to a stud behind even behind sheetrock if you really want to get creative. And, I think holding it, taking possession of it does have logistic issues. It does have security issues, but if you're creative enough, certainly you are able to hide it and keep it quiet. And I think that's typically going to be your best approach. Now, with that being said, I'm very proud of our storage program with Brinks. I believe we have the finest storage program in the industry. And for some people, whether it be living in a very dense, city type atmosphere, like in New York City and Manhattan. I just visited my son in Manhattan. He has 2 roommates. The apartment is almost $8,000 a month, and it's the size of a shoebox. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, people who are living in a place like that, well, they may have issues of being able, not only with roommates, but living in an apartment where it's so crowded all the way around you. That can become an issue. And for some people, whether it be something like that or just accumulating so much that it begins to wear on you and compromise your peace of mind and sleep at night. And then again, the most important asset you can own is peace of mind, is sleep at night. It's feeling good about things and not worrying that you're a victim waiting to happen. And if that is ever the feeling, certainly putting your metal into storage is a good alternative. And if you do that, if you do choose storage, you want to store it somewhere where it is segregated, not allocated. Allocated, the difference between allocated and segregated is that allocated means allocated to a program or to a company or to an IRA. Or when you talk about allocation, it means it's lumped together. To me, it's pooled. When you talk segregated, that's in Dunnigan's name, in Andy's name, and that's what you want. So if you're going to choose to store it somewhere, don't ever be penny wise and pound foolish, choosing allocation over segregation. Make sure it is allocated and segregated. And really, this will come into play most of the time with IRAs, where some custodians will allocate the metal and others will segregate the metal. Segregation is really what you're looking for. So whether it's a personal account or an IRA, you want to choose a company that has a very sound balance sheet. I have partnered with Brinks across the board because they're a Fortune 100 company. They've been around for 100 years. They're as solid and stable as it gets. And I also think that if you're storing, you buy metal, there are certain companies out there, and they're good retail companies. I don't have anything negative to say about any of the companies who offer storage on premises. They're good companies. But as a rule of thumb, Bullion Direct is a good example. This was a company that beat everyone in price online. Everyone asked me, similar to Tulving and Northwest Territorial Mint, why I couldn't compete with them. They also offered storage, and the young man who owned the company is in prison with $35 million worth of people's metal gone. So if you are going to choose a storage facility, it should be third party, one with a good balance sheet. You should be able to know where it is at all times and go and retrieve it if you have to. And it should be segregated. And if you do that, you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's best you could and chosen best you could in a world where choices aren't always perfect. It's as good as it's going to get if you have to relinquish control to a third party. So hold it yourself if you can. Become a midnight gardener and bury it in the ground. It's better than a safe deposit box. But if you run out of options or peace of mind, then a segregated, strong balance sheet depository where you know where it's at all times and can retrieve it if you have to would be the only way that I would ever store or relinquish my precious metals to a depository.
And it doesn't have to be all or nothing either. You can use a both and strategy, so you can have some close at hand as much as you feel comfortable guarding yourself and knowing that sometimes you're gone from your home or whatever. People like to travel sometimes, etc. But then having stored elsewhere what you're not comfortable having all in one place, perhaps. One of the things that we heard from multiple clients is their distress, and these both happen to be IRA accounts, I believe they were, where the custodian didn't even give them a choice for their silver storage in particular of some pretty big name vaults out east in the eastern U.S. seaboard states, where it had to be commingled or pooled storage, and they couldn't get segregated. And one was particularly distressed because she paid a lot of money for the very particular coins she put in there. And when she got back after taking a distribution, it was this ugly dog stuff that she got back. And it's really important that your stuff be yours and stored under your, your separate segregated storage location.
100%. And I've experienced episodes like that I've probably talked with you about, and maybe even publicly before. And it's a big deal, one in particular. And, that depository out east, the owner I like a lot. I like him. His brother-in-law is a good friend of mine here in Florida. I play golf with him twice a week, his brother-in-law. I had lunch with the owner of that depository, which I'm not going to name out of respect. And he's a really good dude, comes from a great family. He's an honorable, upstanding guy. And I just went back and forth with him. I said, listen, until you are able to segregate IRA silver, I can't in good conscience send business there. And he said, well, the way that we do it, it's eagle for eagle or 100-ounce bar for 100-ounce bar. I said, yeah, that's fine. But if you get back eagles that are, I said, let's say you bought 2021 type 1 silver eagles. Well, those are very expensive. But what if you bought San Francisco Mint silver eagles? Or, what if you bought Royal Canadian Mint 100-ounce bars? You need to get those same things back, yes. But if you don't get, even if you do get them back and they're in substandard condition, that's a problem. And I've had that happen. And it was a really big deal. The biggest deal I ever had where this really became a problem were two lovely clients of mine from Minnesota. You and I both hail from Minnesota, and I spent a long time there, 50 years. I moved to Florida a year and a half ago, but I developed a local client, two clients, a husband and a wife, who were just lovely people. And they sold a big candy company. They had bought at the time through their business close to almost 7 figures worth of 100-ounce Johnson Matthey silver bars, and silver was $6 or so per ounce when they bought it. So you can do the math. It's a lot of bars at $600 plus maybe $700 a bar. You're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 Johnson Matthey 100-ounce bars that were in their IRA for a long time. And they owned a big candy company in Minnesota, and they sold it, the candy company. And, Minnesota and North Dakota, where our vault is, are neighboring states. From my home in Minneapolis, I was able to drive to North Dakota in about 3.5 hours to Fargo. And they said, listen, we're going to go, we've asked the depository to send the bars to your depository in North Dakota rather than to our home. We want to take possession of all of our silver since we're retiring and we're cashing out our 401k, our business sponsored 401k. And we want to take possession of our 100-ounce bars. We were wondering if you'd come meet us in Fargo and we can shake your hand and have lunch. And I said, great, that's fantastic. I'd be happy to. So get in the car, buzz up to Fargo, where you and I have filmed once before in the vault. And to my horror, when we opened up the boxes after lunch, 95% of them were generic bars. Silver at this point was near $40 an ounce. So they paid under $700. The melt value on these bars was $4,000. The Johnson Matthey bars would have carried a substantial premium. The bars that they received back were stackable bars. I forgot the name of the company that used to make them. They're no longer there. They're kind of like Legos. They're neat bars, but they're generic, and they were scratched up, and they were bid at spot, where the others would have been bid at $1.50 or $2 an ounce over, somewhere in that neighborhood. Let's call it even $1 over, whatever the number is on 1,500 bars, $1 an ounce. We're talking a lot of money. And we called the depository and they said, we're sorry, we don't segregate IRA silver. We just allocate. You received back 100-ounce bars. Yes, we did. but they were 95% of them were generic. You're talking thousands and thousands of dollars that these people lost, and there was nothing that could be done about it. So that's when I first learned about really the importance of segregation versus allocation. Yeah, they got back 100-ounce bars, but not the premium bars that they bought. And I could tell you other stories, but it's just very, very important. When you are looking for an IRA custodian deposit or a depository through your custodians, there are a few that segregate IRA silver. IDS of Dallas in Delaware does. The Dakota Depository in North Dakota does. I believe the Texas Bullion Depository does, but I'm not positive. Quite frankly, I send the majority of our IRA clients to the Dakota Depository and to IDS because I know for a fact that they segregate metal. Our Brink storage program that we're so proud of, that is fully segregated, that's only for money outside of an IRA. It's called non-qualified money. But for qualified funds, IRA type of money, or those programs are not eligible for our storage program. So anyways, IDS of Dallas and the Dakota Depository, I do know, segregate the metal in the name of Dunnigan, so that if you decide, Dunnigan, that you want to take possession of your IRA metal at any point through what's called an in-kind distribution. See, this is the key to the whole thing, is that to me, if you own a precious metals IRA, the coolest feature, the best part about it, is the ability to take possession through an in-kind distribution or liquidation, where you're going to be taxed as if you sold it and took a check, but here you get the metal sent to you in lieu of or in addition to a cash distribution. So if you're going to potentially get back and take possession of what is within your IRA, you pretty well want it to be what you paid for, what you bought, and in the condition that it was when it was deposited into your IRA, presumably mint condition, brand new.
You're reminding me of when I bought 2 brand spanking new propane cylinders when we got a new gas grill. And then I went in once those were exhausted, and I was going to swap them out at one of these local gas stations that has the Blue Rhino cage out front, and the guy at the store said, no, he says, you are not going to want to swap these in. These are too beautiful. He said, go to this other place down the block, they'll refill them for you. So that's what I did, and I did that over and over again, and never swapped them out. So anyway, it's when you got something that's good,
get what you paid for. You don't want to get something back that's ugly and dinged up or can compromise your liquidity, and it's not a good deal. It's just not. I think here again, the theme of everything we've talked about since the onset of this call has been, removal of counterparty risk, keeping a chain of custody, keeping a pattern of custody from the time you buy it till the time you receive it. And I just think the phrase "penny wise, pound foolish" comes to mind. And you can do things on the cheap, but if you do that, it's going to be to your detriment more often than not. And just as a footnote, the reason that the majority of these depositories will not segregate IRA silver, they'll only allocate it, is because they know so if you were to open up an account at any of the depositories within the IRA depository election form, outside of an IRA, you would pay as much as 2 or 3 times what you pay within the IRA. So they give the custodians a super sweetheart deal because they know that the custodian is a constant funnel of new business, new clients. And so they lowball their storage rate to a custodian who sends them 1,000 clients in a year, even though they're not making anywhere near the amount of money they would if an individual opened up the account, maybe 2 to 3 times less than if an individual opened up the account. So as a result, they're paying or charging less. So they're going to just allocate it to the IRA program. A big box of Silver Eagles, anything that's in this crate belongs to the Equity Trust IRA program. Doesn't matter that Dunnigan is one of the people in the box. You're not, unless you're really lucky, you're probably not going to get the same coins that were put in there in your name but it will be the IRA box for equity. And I apologize for using your name, just trying to make a point here. Anyway, so that's why you find that very often. So wherever you're storing, stay away from pooled accounts 100%, always. And if you're going to store it somewhere, it must be allocated and segregated, and you'll be okay if it's a good company.
The other thing that you talked about there was the importance of making sure that you're dealing with a company that has reputation, that they've got, backing or bonding, or that sort of thing behind it. So know who you're dealing with. And that's what a lot of the people, some of the reasons that people also, even though most people would prefer to hold on to their metals, have them close at hand, and you suggested a bunch of strategies for having them close at hand, is if you're going to be moving, like a lot of people have been the last couple of years, like we've been trying to, or if you are just at reaching the point where the amount of stacking that you've been doing is just getting to be problematic. I mean, I've had people actually call and say, look, you've been sending me boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes. I'm running out of places to put them. What am I going to do? Because I still want more of my investable net worth in metals, but I just can't fit any more in my living space. So that there is other reasons people have different scenarios. But early on, you said something that stuck in my ear, and it is echoed by a viewer's question here. So let's get to that. You said you're more likely to be taken advantage of by the system or by the government than you are by somebody burgling your house. Q69 says, Andy, will the governments implementing CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, force stackers to convert precious metals to CBDCs through the threat of by this time frame or else? So that's been a big question that's been circulating. We've been asked it pointedly by several clients, and that is when the next regime change comes in currency, and if there's no exit, in other words, you can't withdraw cash, and we've gone to this cashless system, is it likely that we'll be forced, told officially that we can't transact in precious metals anymore? We've got to turn them in. Have such things happened in the past? If that happens, are there alternative workarounds for people? Your thoughts on that?
I don't think it'll happen. First of all, I've said for a long time, I don't think you'll see confiscation. I think you have HSBC Bank as the administrator of GLD, the third or fourth largest stockpile of gold in the world, and JP Morgan of the administrator of SLV, the second largest stockpile of silver in the world. You have this massive stockpile of metal held by the two crooked cartel banks. JP Morgan is the administrator of several ETFs and just signed on to be to help store the gold for the largest gold ETF in the world. You have these crooked cartel manipulative banks holding the lion's share of the gold and silver that is being attracted by the big fund managers and the financial advisors who don't want to relinquish money under management and tell someone to go buy physical gold because they can't manage it, but they'll come to buy an ETF, which continues to stockpile gold and silver, all of these ETFs, and they're all managed by and held by the crooked banks. And these banks very easily, if there were confiscation, could take the ETFs. They would allow people the ability to own physical metals. When you look at a country like Russia, who has stripped the VAT tax and telling their people to own gold, and the same with China, it is a foundation of wealth. Alistair McLeod talks about China owning 38,000 tons of gold, which would be almost 5 times what we own, of which 18,000 tons he surmises are owned by the people. When the world is allowing and telling their people to own gold, and the US is clinging to the last vestiges of the world reserve status in the center of free trade, activating eminent domain would be the dumbest thing they could do. We are the pimple on the elephant's rear end, the people who own physical metal. But look at it from a more unemotional standpoint. We're all going to be in the CBDC, right? The Bank of International Settlements said that every country who's a BIS member has to have a central bank digital currency by 2025. We saw the M bridge we've talked about, where a deal between, I think it was Hong Kong, China, and United Arab Emirates, and I want to say Singapore. Not positive on that third country, but anyways, it's a vehicle that allows cross interbank trading of central bank digital currencies. This is happening, and it's going to happen here too. There's all this talk of 85,000 new IRS agents. There's all this new talk of a $600 deal if you use Venmo. I bought some tickets for a concert not too long ago that I'm not going to go to now. I'm going to go skiing with some friends instead. So I had to sell the tickets. And before Ticketmaster would pay me, because I made some money on selling the tickets, the ticket price went up. They want my social security number. They're going to file a 1099. All of these forms of tightening the noose around us in terms of taxation for a liquidity-starved country like ours, a cash-starved country like ours that is so heavily indebted, at some point we'll all have to come back into a central bank digital currency, come back onto the ledger, and bang, they got you right there. They got you. What are you gonna? Where did it come from? Where did it go? You know, there's no way out. So let's say you have the gold, and okay, when it's time to sell, bang, you get paid in the central bank digital currency. Well, tell me about that. You know, Dunnigan, what'd you pay for it? When did you get it? Where are your records? I see right here that you know, so the point of it is they don't need to do that. We represent but a speck of dust in the overall scheme of things. The people who own physical metal in this country are not, we don't own enough to make a dent. But and I think the backlash, the unintended consequences of activating eminent domain, we would lose all trust immediately, more so than we already have from all of our creditors if they feared nationalization of assets like that. So I think that no, we won't be forced to liquidate. I think that this is kind of like a bear trap in the respect that when it comes time to liquidate, you're going into the CBDC, and from that point forward, you have zero anonymity. Now, you know, what does that mean? Don't know. I guess we have to roll with it and see how it all plays out. But I don't think they're going to force us to liquidate. But I think when we do liquidate, we better have our ducks in a row and our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And because if not, I think, you know, these 85,000 IRS agents, well, they're not there just to answer phone calls. They're going to be looking for people who are not paying their taxes the right way. And, you know, I think that the CBDC will just be a way for them to much more easily do their job, because there'll be records of everything from that point forward.
Got a question here that comes up probably every week, if not every day, when getting called by clients about bullion. Kate B says, what's the difference between a silver buffalo coin and a silver eagle coin?
A lot of people think that the silver buffalo is made by the US Mint, and it's not. And it's misleading because the US Mint makes the gold buffalo and the gold eagle. The US Mint does not make a silver buffalo, they make a silver eagle. They make a 5-ounce silver America the Beautiful. They make some other silver coins, odds and ends, but their mainstay is the 1-ounce American Silver Eagle. In gold, it's the 1-ounce gold buffalo and the 1-ounce gold eagle. And it's interesting, they really don't make any fractional gold buffaloes, 1/2, 1/4, 1/10, but they do in the gold and platinum eagle. So the whole thing is a little confusing. The bottom line is that the buffalo silver round, for whatever reason, is one of the more popular designs chosen by the myriad of refiners out there that make the same design or a similar design. It looks very much like a coin. It's very popular, but it is not made by the US government. It is not legal tender. It is a generic round. It is a piece of silver with a couple of stamps on either side that make it look like a coin, but not issued by the US government. There's a big difference.
What about wearable precious metals? We've got a number of questions here about jewelry, different types of forms of jewelry, some of which have standardized number, you know, grams per bead in a necklace or that sort of thing, where you can use those. Any advantages from your standpoint of owning a wearable metal?
I guess if you're going to travel, you know, you could call that an advantage. And even if it says how much it is, I guess that's good. You know, the standard answer is most people don't know how much any of the gold they own is worth, or what it really weighs, or how to do the calculation from 14 or 21 karat to figure out its true melt value. And so it lacks liquidity. I think one of the things that's so nice about about coins is the non-subjective nature of it, where you know what you have. It's clearly marked and stamped. Whereas you have the jewelry. There are a lot of companies out there over the years, cash for gold, that scam the public to the nth degree, because no one knows what it is that they have and how much it's worth. And so you can have the greatest thing in the world, but if it lacks liquidity or transparency, you're at a compromised position. So yes, if you had something that was clearly marked, the weight and whatnot, I guess it's better than just a chain, but really not something I've ever entertained. I'm very, very simple. I prefer either 1 ounce gold bars, 1 ounce gold eagles, or 1 ounce gold buffaloes. If I had my druthers, I would buy the pre-33 US gold coins if the premiums were good, like the special we ran last week. I think that when you cross into the jewelry, if you're getting a good deal on it, or again, is it penny wise, pound foolish thinking? The only person that really makes sense to me would be someone who is doing an awful lot of traveling, maybe going to and from Central or South America, where bringing your gold on an airplane to South America or Central America or Mexico is not so easy. This would be a way to do it with a little bit easier of a pathway than declaring your gold coins that you bring with you in your carry-on.
Another question that we have in the chat is about when people pay with cash, forms of payment and whether that causes reporting. Miles Franklin does not accept any cash equivalents other than money orders, and those only in less than $10,000 amounts. Any reporting when people purchase precious metals, or is it completely private transaction when purchasing metals?
We used to accept cash, and then our bank got a little freaky about it, and so we don't take cash any longer. If you did pay with cash or cash instruments, and if it were with another company that accepted it, if you pay anything over $10,000, they are supposed to issue a Form 8300. And we've talked about this before. Whether you're buying a new wardrobe at Nordstrom's, or 4 sets of golf clubs for your 4 kids at PGA Superstore, or a new F-150. And if you pay with anything over $10,000 in legal tender cash, even if it's only partial payment, you need a Form 8300, which is basically a form that says, well, this gentleman or this woman came in and made a purchase for a new wardrobe for her whole family at Nordstrom's and paid with $12,000 in cash. They're going to want your social security number, the number of bills, your address, all that kind of stuff. And really it's matching up with W-2s or whatnot to make sure that person really has the ability to have that kind of cash. It's just another loss of privacy thing. But no, we don't take it. If you pay with a check, a wire, even if you pay with crypto, there's no dealer reporting at all. And there's no personal reporting at all. The reporting comes when you sell, and it's only some things that we are required to report. Most of it, if not all of it, is the honor system, where you are supposed to tell your accountant that, hey, I sold X amount of gold and silver in this reporting year. Here's what I paid, here's what I sold it for, and that's where it ends. Some things that people sell will trigger dealer reporting, and that is only a 1099. And that 1099 doesn't say what you paid for it. It just says that you sold some metal, and this is the proceeds that you received back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, folks, if you want to know what metals are on the 1099-B reporting list when you do sell them to a dealer in certain quantities, just write to us at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com and just put 1099 in the title of the email with your name and your email address. We'll have your email address, just your name in there. We'll reply back to you with a link to a document that includes that list of metals, because there's only certain ones and only in certain quantities within a single transaction that'll trigger a report when you sell, but never when you buy. Andy, we got another question from Christopher Bick. Andy, how would you cross borders with wealth in hand?
Depends where you're going. I've told the story many times, going home from Montreal with 240 ounces of gold. I can try to tell that in a very condensed manner here in a second. But what I'm about to tell you, I would only try going in and out of the US from Canada, from Western Europe, perhaps Australia, New Zealand. Would not try this in Asia, would not try this in Mexico, would not try this in Central or South America. I have always told people that with legal tender coins, like the American Eagle's $50 face value, the Maple Leaf is also 50. Those are legal tender items. They're not currency, but they're legal tender. And so for the purposes of traveling across border, if you have 20 gold eagles on you and you're going into Canada, you don't have $40,000, $39,000, you have $1,000 face value, 20 times 50. And so I put this into practice a few times coming home from Canada. The one that has really got the most attention was coming from Montreal with 240 gold Maple Leafs. 240 times 50 is $12,000. And when you come through any port of entry in Canada through an airport, you go through Homeland Security and Immigration Customs in that airport, so that when I land in Florida or wherever else I'm landing, I don't go through customs there. So when I got up to the window, I told the gentleman I had 240 gold Maple Leafs worth $12,000. And I needed to, and I wrote on the customs form that I had over $10,000 with me, because the value 50 times 240 was 12,000. So he said, "What do you have?" And I said, "I have 240 gold Maple Leafs." And he said, "Well, you're gonna need to go to further screening." I shut off the light of his booth and paraded me down to the basement of the Montreal airport to a room that was all glass and stainless steel, where they wouldn't hear you scream. And he said, "Don't touch your bag, sit down, someone will be with you shortly." And he was gone. I turned around and I'm all alone in the mirrored room. And it was a little surreal. You know, they're watching me. About 20 minutes later, a Homeland Security supervisor came out and asked me what I had. And I said, like I told your associate, I have 240 gold Maple Leafs. They're $50 face value coins. I'm declaring $12,000. See? And I give him the coin. He says, "You know, I'm inclined to believe you, Mr. Schectman. Let me ask you a few questions." Now, this was a few years ago. He says, "How much is gold?" I said, it's $1,200 an ounce. And he says, "Well, isn't that about $300,000 that you're bringing into the United States?" And I said, "It is, but as you can see, there's a $50 face value on that. It is legal tender. And for that reason, I'm only declaring $12,000 legal tender, Canadian legal tender." He says, "You know, I'm inclined to believe you, but I'm going to need to do a little research. I'm going to borrow your coin. In the meantime, you fill out this FinCEN form. And this is a form no one ever wants to see. You don't ever want to fill it out. The acronym is something to the extent of financial investigation or financial enforcement, criminal investigation, whatever it is. It's a form I had no interest in taking part of, but it was, the gold didn't belong to me. It was from a very large client of mine in Montreal who asked me to bring it back to our vaulting program in the United States. So I did. Anyways, to make a long story short, the officer comes back. He gives me my coin. He says, "I'll be damned. You're right. It is legal tender. Let me see the FinCEN form." I hand it to him and he says, "I almost forgot. How much money do you have on you?" And I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. So I open up my wallet and I have about $37. I tell him such. He says, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Are you positive?" I said, "Look, I might have some money in change in the bottom of my backpack, but that's all." And he says, "Okay." And he tears up the FinCEN form and he says, "You're free to go." And I said, "Well, that's very nice of you, but could you please elaborate?" He says, "I figured you'd ask. This guy should have won an Academy Award for the way he strung me along." He said, "You are entering the United States with some change in your backpack and $37 in your wallet, to the best of your knowledge. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir, that is correct." "And you are entering the United States with 240 gold Maple Leafs with a $50 face value, equivalent of $12,000 Canadian. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir, that is correct." "Well, the exchange rate today puts that at $9,700. And with the money in your backpack and your wallet, you are under the $10,000 threshold. He tore up the fence in for me, said, have a nice day. So the moral of the story is if you know where you are going and you are familiar with what to say, you can take gold coins across border. I wouldn't even declare them. I would put them in my bag where my carry-on. I would take them out of my bag and put them in the tray where you put your shoes, and be forthright about it. And as it goes by the x-ray machine, try to, hey, coins, hey, coins in there. You can mouth it. And most of the time they'll be like, okay. And if they say, hey, I want to see what's in the box, you can request further screening. They'll bring you into a back room. They'll look at it and they're always amazed by it. They're always very cool. I've never had a problem. Just be open about it. Don't try and do it and act as though you're hiding anything. Now that's when you leave the airport. When you get into the other country, this is where you have to make a decision. Do I want to declare it or not? Because if you don't declare it, you're right, but you may get a TSA agent who's not quite sure if the rules are going to have to go through a whole big rigmarole. You could always declare it, and declaration is just saying, hey, this is what I got, nothing illegal about it. That's up to you. So moral of the story, if you're bringing gold bars or gold Krugerrands, which don't have a face value, it's an ounce of gold. You're bringing a gold eagle into Canada, it's $50 United States. Conversion rate applies. So that's a pretty good analogy of it. If you're going to a part of the world where you're not certain or you're not really sure it's going to be very friendly, such as Asia, Central or South America, or Mexico, don't do it. It's not worth it. If you're going to Mexico or Central or South America, get some little 2 or 2.5 peso coins about the size of a button on a shirt. Button on your shirt right there. They're no bigger than that. And you can put those in a change purse or throw half a dozen inside your luggage and slowly build up each time you come back and forth some gold in a form that is very small, and people in a Latin speaking culture or country would understand what the 2 and 2.5 peso is. So there are ways to do it. You can always call us and ask if you have questions, but don't try to ever bring something in under the radar. It's not worth it. They'll take it and you won't get it back.
Two related questions here, following up on your statements earlier about the difference between silver buffaloes versus American eagles, for example. Thomas Toop says, important to note that rounds are not coins. And Kate B says, and why would anyone purchase silver buffaloes or other rounds if they're not legal tender?
Why? Why would people drink generic soda instead of Coca-Cola? It's an ounce. It's an ounce. In the case of the soda, they both drink the same. One is more recognized. In the case of the legal tender aspect of a silver coin or a gold coin, I often wonder, well, why is there even any legal tender amount on it to begin with? Who in their right mind is going to sell a gold eagle for $50? Who in their right mind is going to sell a silver eagle for $1? So, the legal tender aspect of it is somewhat suspect to begin with. The reason someone would buy a buffalo round over a silver eagle is that you're getting an ounce of silver at a much more favorable price. You don't have the premium. What is premium? It's a function of supply and demand. Therefore, there's greater demand for the legal tender coins than there is a generic silver round. But in the end, if you drop both of them into a blast furnace, you'll have an ounce of liquid silver. You won't be able to tell the two apart. So in the end, they both drink the same. One is a little bit more recognized than the other, but one is also going to give you a much better value for your dollar, arguably, than the other.
We've got a question here about, I got to find it now. I had it just a minute ago.
You're doing a great job, Duncan. Multitasking.
Well, this is another thing that we had interviewed constitutional attorney Edwin Vieira, Dr. Edwin Vieira, on there. He said there are certain states in our country which had gold contract laws on their books within their states. In the constitution of their state, you could buy and sell real estate, ranches or other property, and you could make a gold contract. And he said that there's been a kind of an arm wrestling between the federal government that wants to invalidate gold contracts or has, and states that are trying to enforce that within the boundaries of their state that they should be legal. And now that's not necessarily an area of expertise from you, but have you talked with others about what the direction that's heading in?
No, I haven't, but I'll tell you one thing. I could see that really gaining popularity if we move to a central bank digital currency system where you're in essence talking about, using gold in favor of the central bank digital currency. I haven't, but it wouldn't surprise me. That probably is Utah, if I had to guess, would be my guess, but I don't know. But look, gold and silver are money. They're wealth. I'm sure these are laws that go way back, because it's been money. It is money. It will always be money long after this first run of whatever central bank digital dollar probably goes by the wayside as well. So look, I haven't heard about it, but these are some of the things that you never know. These are the things that could pop up where you just never know. Oftentimes we have a plan and that plan changes as things unfold. And if anything I've learned over the last 3 years is that anything can happen, anything can happen. And maybe even an attempt to take back our Constitution, to take back our liberty, to take back our currency, to take back our country. Maybe that happens in a very peaceful way where we use sound money as the springboard to, pull us up from our bootstraps, from a country that is massively indebted and a currency that has been eviscerated in terms of its value. And it'd be nice to use sound money again, and maybe the people who have had enough insight to purchase precious metals before this happens will actually be able to keep it when we see this gold revaluation, which I think is coming. And maybe that explains the massive drawdown of supply off of the exchanges. The big money knows the relevance of being positioned in gold and silver before we see any type of revaluation. That the Dutch governor of their central bank said, hey, this is the key to all the central banks becoming solvent, is to revalue gold, to get their balance sheets whole. Well, look, people will say, well, Roosevelt confiscated gold. There he is right over your shoulder. Yeah, he did, but everyone owned it and it was legal tender. Now, is it really worth the backlash? Go and grab the ETFs, be sitting on all they need. And the little guys who own gold and silver, they can keep it. When they sell, they'll go back into the CBDC realm. I just don't see gold confiscation, but I see, who knows, maybe there will be things that unfold that we can't see, where if you were smart enough to accumulate gold and silver as wealth, okay, it's not an investment, more so now than ever. I always say this little buzz phrase, it's outlived 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, and the Great Depression, and every pandemic it has. And maybe it will outlive another dollar revaluation, or gold revaluation, or maybe a global revaluation, or maybe a new world reserve standard, or whatever it is. I think it's never been more important to own precious metals. And if they take it from us, okay, if they do, eminent domain says they have to pay you something fair for it. So yeah, it would suck. It really would. And it could happen, right? I'd be lying if I said otherwise. Desperate governments do desperate things. I don't think it will happen. I think the ETFs will lead the way. But you hope for the best, you prepare for the worst, and maybe it affords us opportunities or possibilities that we don't even see on the horizon right now.
I've got an actual story from last week. I got a call from an attorney, and it's about using gold to settle a contract, and I forgot that about until just now when we were talking about it, but I just remembered we're getting late in the hour, and I want to give you a chance to talk about our special. So I'll give you a chance right now to talk about the special and show pictures of that, and then I'll tell the story about the attorney who called me and about the gold contract.
Yeah, real quick, last week we offered the $20 gold pieces, and I will tell everyone out there, for 33 years I've bought gold and silver every 2 weeks. There is nothing that I like better in gold than the pre-33 $20 gold pieces. they're amazing in every way. They're a piece of Americana. They're historical. They're basically an ounce of gold. They're beautiful. They tell a story. They speak to you almost, especially the circulated ones from the early or mid 1800s. You just wonder, where was this coin 150 years ago? We still have some of those left, and we'll try to keep the prices pretty much where they were over the last week. So if anyone is looking for gold, give us a call or send an email on those $20 gold pieces that we had from last week. You won't be sorry that you did. Our prices will be really good, and if you're going to buy gold, it's the thing to buy. In terms of this week, once again, look, as much as I love gold, as much as I believe when the music stops, you want to be in gold because it's the only other tier 1 reserve asset, because the central banks have loaded up on it more than at any time since 1974, because the withdrawals to the BRICS nations just in the third quarter alone amount to over 400 tons of gold, double almost the biggest third quarter on record. Gold is the place to be, in my opinion, when the music stops. But I can't look past the ability to get much more gold by buying silver, which is the most undervalued asset on the planet. And the relationship between the two affords such an opportunity, once in a generation opportunity, where you see a nearly 80-to-1 ratio between the two, which is historically so far out of whack in terms of its price relationship to gold and its geologic relationship to gold and its utility, what it is used for in expansive green and digital applications. The need for silver is extraordinary. And I just can't help but continue to pound the table of the virtues of silver and the ability to buy it at this ratio. And when it corrects in its relationship to gold, consider making that trade. I think a double is easy, where 42-to-1 represents its 200-year average. Where we are right now, if it just hits its average of where it's been priced in its relationship to gold, it's a double or damn near it. And it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1. We're 10 times, 11 times over that right now. It's just too good to ignore. So we're going to go with the backdate and 2022 silver maple leafs. And the backdate silver maple leafs would be any date other than 2022. We don't have the 2023s in the maple leafs yet. Those will be $6.05 over the price of silver. And they come in sealed mint boxes and tubes of 25. We do have quite a few of the sealed mint boxes available. And then the 2022s at 6.25 over, same thing, sealed mint boxes, tubes of 25. Purest silver coin in the world, 4 nines, 9999. You can see on the second from right coin there, 4 nines pure. In terms of silver coins, it's as good as it gets. And you know, it just hasn't been easy to continue to bring specials. I wanted to get some gold out there last week because those are so special to me. But truth be told, I don't think there's a better investment on the planet. And I don't sell metals as an investment. To me, I sell them as wealth. I say that all the time. But silver truly is an investment in every way. It offers investment potential that you typically don't see, especially in my industry. So we're going to go with the maples this week and still have some of the gold available. But looking for coins, it's as good of a buy as we've seen on silver maple leafs in the last year.
Thanks for that. And everybody, if you want to see our specials every week and not miss a single one, make sure you go to libertyandfinance.com, put your name, your email address, click submit. You'll get a confirming email. Make sure you do confirm, then you're in. You'll get one email in your inbox each day with our latest interview, no matter who it's with, Andy, Alistair, Rick Rule, whoever it is, and the weekly special in there, so you won't miss that. I promised you got to tell you the story, and it came back to me, Andy, about the attorney who called me. I got this phone call, and the person said, okay, I work for a client who's trying to buy a business from another person who's selling the business, but what the person selling the business has set the price. but they don't want to be paid in cash. They want to be paid in gold. And they said that I should call you and ask you how much gold they could get in 1 ounce form that would fulfill that price. And that the purchaser of their business, who's going to agree to buy their business, can pay it all up front, or they can pay it in installments over a 5-year period. But it's got to be that same number of ounces of gold. And so they can pay it now or pay it later. It's up to them in installments. And so I quoted him what the current price would have been for that dollar value worth of gold. It was a very significant quantity. And they said, thank you very much. That'll help me. We can write this up now. Now we know how to write up the contract for the purchase of this business. So I just remembered I was just involved with this just in the last week or two, which is a creation of a contract to buy a business where the dollar value of the business is being declared, but the payment must be paid in physical gold. And the reason that the seller isn't sweating whether they pay up front or whether they pay over a period of time is because he knows he's going to get his gold, and it may be worth a lot more later. So maybe it'll be in their best interest to to buy it sooner than later.
It's really interesting. And I think I'm just thinking outside the box. I could be way off base on this, but maybe they allow this, or maybe it's on the books, or maybe it just makes sense to me. Similar to why gold would not be part of probate in an estate. Even if it were declared in the state, there would be no probate because you know exactly what it's worth. An ounce of gold is an ounce of gold wherever it is. So you know what it's worth at the day someone passed away. And in this case, I'm thinking, well, what if you traded a baseball card collection for a business and it's worth millions of dollars? Well, it's somewhat subjective. So in terms of valuation, the IRS might have a problem with that. But when you talk about gold, it is not subjective. And if you're buying 1 ounce bullion bars or kilo bars of gold or whatever you're buying, it is standardized. So it does make sense. I don't know how it would all play out in terms of taxes and reporting and this kind of stuff. It's quite intriguing. It doesn't surprise me, quite frankly. And I think the business owner who's selling the business is one shrewd person, because the likelihood of the dollars that they receive depreciating in value over that time period is tremendous. It's guaranteed. Whereas, the gold won't. And so, at least in theory, anyways, it will retain its purchasing power, as the dollar right now is losing. If you believe the numbers that we hear out of the Fed, it's losing 6 or 7% per year, and we know those numbers are not really true. So, anyways, bottom line is, I think it's cool. It's a good idea, and it speaks to the virtues of gold, and probably part of the reason why it's been viewed as wealth or as money since biblical times.
Yeah, I just finished interviewing Michael Pinto today. That's going to be coming up really soon, folks. He was talking
really
about,
good, by the way. I like him a lot.
He was saying, as you said, the Fed was admitting, close to 10% inflation, 9%, whatever, over the past couple of quarters or whatever. But he said that's figured the way it's supposed to be figured, according to John Williams of shadowstats.com. Said it was more like 20% for the past couple of quarters. So anyway, that's what's happening to our dollars.
I went, just to give you an idea. I mean, it's so crazy, man. I went to visit my son in New York City this weekend. And I went to a restaurant everyone told me I had to go to. It was called Carbone. Amazing food. It was nothing lavish. It was a very old Italian restaurant that everyone said you have to go to. And I visited my son. He's an adult. He's 22 years old, and we had a couple of Manhattans while in Manhattan, right? And my wife and one of my daughters, and the dinner was $800. I almost fell out of my chair. Literally fell out of my chair. When I came home to the airport, LaGuardia Airport, the Vikings game, I'm a big Minnesota Vikings fan, was on at the bar right next to our gate against the Jets. Got some time, thought I'd have a beer. $23 later for a beer at LaGuardia Airport. Mind you, it was a pint. It was $23. And I mean, anyone telling me that inflation is not off the charts is not spending any time in Manhattan, I'll tell you that much. A cab from the airport to to the hotel, which was 12 miles, was almost $60. So I don't know how anyone, any young person anyway, my son's apartment has 2 roommates, tiny little Cracker Jack, itty bitty shoebox is almost $8,000 a year. I mean, a month. So I don't know. It's, there is inflation and it's bad. So I think that it's not getting any better anytime soon. Certainly the government has a vested interest in having us all believe that it's better than it is. But owning gold is a way to protect yourself, especially over an extended period of time. So I think that person is very shrewd. I'd like to know, in fact, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive and learn a little bit more about that myself and see what that's all about. Maybe we'll talk about it another time.
Well, I just wanted to also thank everyone who's been here for the live stream, because all the questions that you guys asked in the live stream helped keep it real, keep us able to make sure every time you ask a question, there's 100 people. We have 627 people currently in the live chat. So every question you ask, there's probably at least 100 other people that were thinking that same thing. You helped that many people. And now they're going to have people watching this after we are done with the live stream, watching it, thousands tonight, thousands tomorrow, and so on. Thank you very much for being here, everyone who joined the live stream and stuck your neck out there, put a question out there. Good for you. You're helping each other. That's how we all learn. I learn every time we do one of these, every time we talk to any of our guests. So that you don't miss a single guest, make sure you subscribe at libertyandfinance.com. Andy, as always, thanks for being here with us. And we're going to wrap on time almost. So once again, thank you everyone for being here, and hope you all enjoyed the live stream. We'll try to do this again sometime soon.
Look forward to it. See you next week.